A few patches ago, the M1128 Stryker was released. At the time, it was relatively weak in the meta of War Thunder. It had a reload speed that was a full 3 seconds slower than most contemporary NATO tanks, and wasn't particularly more mobile to compensate, which led to some very frustrating gameplay. However, recently in a micro patch, Gaijin reduced the reload down to 7.5 seconds. While still not an amazing reload, it is now at least competitive with the Soviet and Chinese reloads. Alright lads, today I'm going to be talking about the performance, weapons and playstyle of the M1128 Stryker. Starting as always with the basics, this vehicle is a rank 7 battle rating 9.0 tank destroyer located in the American tech tree. Being a rank 7 tech tree vehicle, it will come stock and only be effective at researching the vehicles between the ranks of 6 and 7. To unlock this tank, you'll have to grind out 390,000 research points before purchasing the tank for a cost of 1,020,000 silver lions. After this, you will have to pay a crew training cost of 290,000 silver lions. To purchase the expert and ace qualifications for the tank, it will cost you an additional 1,120,000 silver lions and 2,100 golden eagles respectively. The tank also has a relatively low repair cost of 5,018 silver lions, making it quite a cheap rank 7 vehicle. Moving on to the rewards, and the Stryker has a base modifier of 2.32, so you can expect a 232% modifier with a free-to-play account and 464% with a premium account. You also have a base silver line modifier of 1.5, slightly higher than the average premium base modifier. In game, this gives you a base silver line modifier of 150% with a free-to-play account and 225% with a premium account. In terms of customization, there are several camouflages available to purchase for Golden Eagles, as well as a single skin located on the Gaijin store. In terms of lineups, the United States doesn't really offer many in-meta vehicles around the battle ratings of 9.0, with most games now seeing up tiers to 10.0. Regardless, alongside the Stryker you can bring along the M60 TTS, the Macarthur Mark II, and the M3 Bradley, and if you're willing to up tier the tank to battle rating 9.3, you can bring along the XM1, XM803, and the MBT-70. In this video we're going to cover the mobility, armour and firepower of the vehicle, before finishing with a conclusion. If you do like these sorts of reviews, then please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. Starting as always with the engine and performance, and the Stryker is powered by an engine producing 350 horsepower. Combined with the vehicle's weight of 23.4 tons, it gives the vehicle a power to weight ratio of 15 horsepower per ton. This is pretty poor for a battle rating 9.0 vehicle. For example, the M60A3 TTS, our vehicle well known for its poor mobility, has a power to weight ratio of 15.7 horsepower per ton. Luckily, the Stryker uses a wheeled chassis instead of a conventional track system, so while your acceleration is fairly poor, your theoretical top speed is very good. Taking a quick look at the transmission, and as I said, you have theoretical top speed as a staggering 121 km per hour. However, on soft terrain like mud and sand, you can only really reach a top speed of 44 km per hour. Your very high top speed of over 120 km per hour is only really achievable on hard terrain, such as paved maps, and in most cases, running around at top speed is a great way to get yourself blown to pieces. Although you are very fast going forward, your reverse speed is more conservative, only being able to reach a mediocre 15 km per hour. This, combined with your poor power to weight ratio, leads to some very sloppy retreats. As this tank is a wheeled vehicle, it naturally has a much larger turning circle than a conventional track tank. This has both pros and cons. We've covered the speed advantage, but tanks have tracks for a reason, which is mainly weight distribution. The fairly narrow wheels of the Stryker result in a high ground pressure, making the tank very slow in sand and snow. Overall, the mobility of this vehicle is nothing special. While fine for playing as a stationary tank destroyer, it has taken a large doctrinal change from the days of the M18 Hellcat. Running around the battlefield blasting anyone you come across is no longer practicable, as the difference in speed between you and most enemies is negligible. Okay, moving on to the armour and survivability, and the first thing to mention is that this tank has a crew of 3 men, with 2 in the turret and a driver in the hull. Your crew members are only protected by a half of an inch of steel across the entire vehicle, with slight differences in effective protection due to the angling. The tank is also equipped with add-on cage armour, which covers the entire hull. While in real life this cage armour causes incoming rounds to detonate before reaching natural armour, in War Thunder it makes no practical difference. Pretty much all heat effect rounds are going to penetrate your armour. This is bad for any vehicle, but especially for the Stryker, as its hull has the hull break mechanic. This means if a heat effect round hits your hull, it will instantly knock out the vehicle. Thankfully at battle rating 9.0, it's only really stock vehicles that carry heat effects, with most tanks exclusively using APFSDS rounds. It is worth noting, however, that you will be incredibly vulnerable to artillery, planes and helicopters in this vehicle. Unlike many other tanks in the game, this tank uses a crewless turret, meaning you can effectively sit hull down in the tank without the risking of losing crew members. Sure, your gun might get knocked out, but unless the enemy hits you with a high explosive round, you shouldn't take damage to the hull of the vehicle. But moving on to the arm performance itself, and to test this, we're going to be using the 3BM42 Mango round fired by the T72AV terms, found at batter rating 9.7. Starting with the lower frontal plate, and we have between 30 and 40mm of armor protection. Moving upwards, and protection ranges from 80mm all the way down to 30mm armor as we approach the top of the hull. Moving up to the turret, and although being very easy to penetrate, there are no crew members here to harm. An inert APFSDS round here will simply black out the gun. If we turn the camera to the side of the vehicle, and we have a constant 20mm of armor protection running all the way down the length of the hull. And finally, the rear of the hull also has 20mm of effective protection. Overall, the survivability of the Stryker is pretty poor. It has no real armor protection and doesn't make up for it with being above average mobility. While you do have pretty good hold down potential, this is a fairly niche playstyle, and there are very few positions that allow you to fully utilise this tactic in War Thunder. Moving on to the weapons and ammunition, and as you can see, the Stryker is armed with the 105mm M68A1E3 cannon. This is a late American variant of the British Royal Ordnance L7 gun, the same reliable weapon found on most of the other NATO vehicles at this batter rating, including the Leopard A1A1, OF40 and the XM1. This gun is fully stabilised, but has rather limited vertical guidance characteristics, with 15 degrees of gun elevation, but an awful 5 degrees of gun depression, seriously limiting your ability to use hills and ridgelines. This poor gun depression somewhat negates your lack of a crude turret, as you will find it hard to actually find a position where 5 degrees of gun depression is enough to allow you to stay hull down, and not expose the hull. A better tactic may be used to use the Rex as cover and fire over the top of them. You can carry 18 rounds in total, with 8 of those rounds being classed as first stage ammunition. The Stryker also uses a cylindrical autoloader, meaning all of your reloads will be at constant speed, no matter the status of your crew or the crew level of your tank. So taking a look at the reloading skill under the loader section, and you can see we have a constant reload speed of 7.5 seconds. This is actually pretty poor for the batter rating, with most other tanks firing every 6.7 to 8.7 seconds. However, if you are fully up tiered, some of the early T72 variants will beat your reload speed at 7.1 seconds. Moving on to the targeting skill under the gunner section, and we can see that you have a base turret rotation speed of 28 degrees per second, which rises to 40 degrees per second with an ace crew. This is very good, and gives you the same turret rotation speeds as the premium XM1. It allows Stryker players to be very snappy in responding to emerging threats, although, as we've already covered, your weak armor means that you shouldn't be brawling as a go-to tactic. Next we move on to the modifications, and I want to point out that this tank gets access to high resolution thermal imaging for both the gunner and commander, something that seriously increases your lethality as a tank destroyer, as you can sit and wait for prey to come to you. You also have a laser rangefinder, making accurate long range shooting incredibly reliable. You also have a pretty good field of view in the gunner sight, as well as a base 3.3x zoom and an optional 10x zoom, giving you pretty good long range accuracy on most maps. Moving on to the ammunition, and we have 3 available, 1 stock and 2 unlockable. Your stock round is the M456A2. It travels at a muzzle velocity of 1,173 meters per second and can penetrate 400mm of flat armour, and against armour angled at 60 degrees, it still manages 200mm of penetration. This is by no means a bad stock shell, but at a batter rating which frequently faces the composite armoured 9.7 tanks, it falls short of being a reliable one-shot killing round. Luckily for you, in the first rank of the modifications you get access to the C76A1 shell. This is an early APFSDS round that is basically a clone of the DM23 round. It travels at a muzzle velocity of 1,509 meters per second and can penetrate 334mm of flat armour, and against armour angled at 60 degrees, it still manages to penetrate 193mm of armour. These penetration statistics makes it slightly worse than the DM23 round, but it still performs well against early main battle tanks. And finally, in the last rank of the modifications, you get access to the M900 APFSDS round. This is a modern APFSDS round, and it travels at a muzzle velocity of 1005 meters per second and can penetrate a staggering 522mm of flat armour, and against armour angled at 60 degrees, it can still punch through 302mm of armour. For a batter rating 9.0 vehicle, this is an insanely powerful round, the strongest tier for tier APFSDS round in the game as far as I'm aware. Even in a full up tier, there is no tank that can resist this round, at least when aimed correctly. As well as the cannon, the Stryker also carries a coaxially mounted rifle caliber machine gun, as well as a pinto mounted 50 caliber machine gun, controlled by the commander. Overall, the Stryker's firepower is a sole redeeming feature of the vehicle. While its mobility is average, its armour and reload rate are poor, its main ammunition and fire control systems, such as the field of view thermals, are very powerful. The Stryker is more of a conservative type of tank destroyer, much more suited to the ambush role, rather than that of an aggressive hunter. To conclude, the Stryker is a very powerful weapon system. While not the best armoured and lacking in mobility, when in a static secure position, there are very few tanks that can match the Stryker's level of firepower. At battle rating 9.0, it fits very nicely into the American lineup. Although the American sub-top tier isn't known for being that competitive, the Stryker certainly adds a powerful asset to the American team. Armed with that insane M900 round as well, the Stryker is still viable as a backup at the battle rating of 10.7, although the reload here is a little slow. The only other direct competitor to the Stryker is the HSTVL. This is a fast, small, rapid-firing light tank. It has a less powerful gun, but fires every 1.5 seconds. Both vehicles are rank 7 and perform similar battlefield functions. Neither are well armoured, but the HSTVL is faster. It then comes to lineups and tech tree placement. The Stryker is located behind the T-95 and the Starship. Two vehicles well noted for not being that competitive in the current meta, whereas the HSTVL is behind the M3 Bradley and the Sheridan, the former of which is a fairly powerful backup at top tier. So instead of grinding down the Starship line, a better alternative may be the M3 Bradley, finishing with the HSTVL as a replacement for the Stryker. Overall though, the Stryker is an incredibly powerful vehicle when played in a conservative manner. It is by no means easy to play, and positioning is frankly more important to doing well in this tank than the tank's features itself. If you aren't really too bothered about grinding the Americans, then I wouldn't recommend grinding this tank. It's a huge time investment, especially if you don't have a premium account. But if you have the time and the willpower, then the M1128 Stryker is a difficult but rewarding and powerful vehicle in the US tech tree. Alright lads, thank you very much for watching this video. What do you guys think about this vehicle? If you have any questions or suggestions to improve the channel, please feel free to leave a comment below. I now have community memberships enabled on my channel. If you'd like a badge on your name during live streams, as well as access to content early, then consider becoming a member. I'd like to mention that I also have a Twitter account, and can be found at the handle SAKO Sniper. I also have a second channel where I upload live commentary and other non-War Thunder related content. So if you like more laid back videos, my second channel may be more your thing. If you do enjoy these review videos, then please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. More importantly lads, I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.